Today, we're going to talk about virtual presentations. Now, clearly, you've already given some virtual presentations in your class, and in the future, you'll be doing one that is a recorded presentation. So, I just wanted to spend some time really talking about what is in chapter 12 of the book and giving you tips and things to consider so that you can deliver the best asynchronous and synchronous recorded presentations possible. So, one thing I wanted to point out, this has become even more of an important skill. A lot of work was moving remotely. Presentations were becoming more like things like webinars. But as you can see in March 2020, it shows the different countries, and this is the increase in downloads of things like Hangout Meets, House Party, Microsoft Teams, Zoom Cloud Meetings. Now, all of these weren't presentations, but many of them were for work related reasons. And so in class, you maybe have had Zoom classes or you gave Zoom presentations. And as you're here at Purdue, many of your classes involve these kind of things. So there's some real skill to it. And if you become better at it, you can be more successful. And eventually, hopefully, we go back to that we can do more things in person, but there's never going to be a time when remote communication and remote presentations are not a thing you need to consider. So, just to go over some of the basics, let me try to get myself out of the way here. The two major kinds we talk about are asynchronous and synchronous. So, asynchronous is something that's recorded and the audience is not receiving your information live. So this is an example of like a YouTube video. So here this woman's doing a book review. She most likely filmed this at her house, posted it to YouTube, and now we can go and watch it. The other, synchronous, and right now what I'm doing is an asynchronous presentation. A synchronous presentation is this idea of a live meeting. And so when you're giving your presentations in class, those would be an example possibly of a synchronous presentation if everyone's logged into a meeting. And as the book goes through, and you can read more about it there are advantages and disadvantages to both kinds, right? So the ability to re-record yourself if it doesn't go well is great for asynchronous, but at the same time, there's no immediate feedback. Right now, I'm talking to a screen and I'm imagining you sitting there watching me, but I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I don't know if you're interested. I'm not getting any of that kind of nonverbal feedback that I could get in a synchronous meeting or if there was a chat room. So the number one thing I want to stress upon everyone is that recording quality matters, whether you are synchronous or asynchronous. So you see here, same guy, same location. I'll move that up. You can see there's the fan. But things like lighting, where you are in the screen, matter. Now, you do not need to be a professional videographer. It does not need to be professional quality. But something like this, if you're completely in the dark and it's hard to see your features, that is distracting to your audience, right? And so keeping in mind basic tips like your major light source should always be in front of you. That helps avoid some shadows. How far away are you? How close are you to the camera are things to consider. Where am I in the screen? So other things to consider, the length of your presentation. So one of the things, especially with an asynchronous presentation, is people have the ability to stop it. They have the ability to fast forward it, to just skip it altogether. So you want to think about what is the length, what is going to keep people engaged, remembering that many studies show that our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller, mostly because of the advent of social media, and we like sound bites and we like little clips, we like tweet. And so if it's too long and there's a lot of extraneous information that's not useful, people are just going to turn you off. Also think about your voice. So you don't want to sound robotic. You want to sound conversational. You want to vary your tone so you sound enthusiastic. And audio quality, this goes along with the idea of recording. So you don't need to have a professional mic. You don't need a podcasting studio with pads on the walls. But you've all heard those recordings where someone's too close to the microphone and it sounds fuzzy, or they're so far away I cannot hear them. And so if you're doing a synchronous presentation, test the audio before you get on. Actually test everything. Can I get on? Does my camera work? Those kind of things. But also too, in a presentation and along with audio quality, what is the background noise? You know, is there traffic going on? Is there a TV in the background? And then along this idea of background is what is actually visually behind you. And so typical rule of thumb is to have less behind you so that it's not distracting, but very specifically things that might be offensive, obviously avoid that. But even things like a messy room. So if you're filming this in your dorm room or your apartment and there's a pile of dirty laundry, that could say something to someone about you as a speaker. And maybe that's unfair, but again, it's all about how you're presenting yourself. And depending on the platform, you may be able to have in Zoom, you can have a Zoom background if you don't necessarily have somewhere that you can be. So those are all really, really good things to keep in mind. And the other thing that I think is really important is to remember there is an audience on the other side of your presentation. And so sometimes it's easy when I'm just talking to a screen to forget about who am I talking to. And, we thought about audience analysis, and the most important thing was adapting to our audience. So how can I relate to, and also things like eye contact, thinking about where are my eyes? So obviously I can't see any of you, but one of our tendencies when we're talking, especially if you're using a recording mechanism, like right now, I can see my camera over here and you see I'm looking at it. So it's tempting sometimes to look at that because that's distracting. Or I'll look in the middle of my computer screen because if I was looking out into audience, I would look towards the middle. But always remember where your camera is, which if you're using, say, a laptop, it's often up at the top right there. So if I look into that, that gives me the impression of having the most direct eye contact, right? But if I'm reading notes and looking down, that's bad enough in real life. It's even worse on a recorded medium. Another thing to be careful of, and I've seen a lot of this, is a lot of times people, if you're doing a recording and you don't have slides or something, is putting your notes up on the screen, which a few notes, that's great, like a note card. But if you start to read like a paragraph of text, one, your voice is going to sound like you're reading, not like you're conversational, but also your eye movement will track and your audience can tell that you're just reading back and forth across the screen. So again, you're going to get tons of practice doing these in this class, both synchronous and asynchronous, and this is a skill that's really going to help you moving forward.